As the hours passed, Arian sat by the comms console, his mind numb. The ships of the invaders were getting closer, their weapons firing indiscriminately. He could hear the distant sounds of destruction, the cries of his people as they fought to survive. He felt a deep sense of loss, of helplessness, but still, he couldn't give up. He couldn't let his world be destroyed without trying to do something. He had to believe that somewhere, someone would answer. Just as he was about to give up hope, a strange sound crackled through the comm system. It was faint, almost inaudible, but it was there. He leaned in, his breath catching in his throat. The voice was familiar, human even. "This is Earth. We've received your distress signal. We're coming. Hold on." For a moment, Arian couldn't believe what he was hearing. Earth. The people of Earth were nothing like the advanced civilizations that had ignored them. Earth was known for its small, humble people, struggling to survive in the vast universe. They were not powerful, not wealthy. They didn't have fleets of warships or advanced technology. But they were coming. They were coming to help. Arian's heart surged with a mixture of disbelief and hope. Could it really be true? Was Earth, of all places, sending help? His mind raced, and for the first time in days, a glimmer of hope sparked within him. Maybe they weren't alone after all. Maybe there was a chance for survival. But even as the hope blossomed, Arian couldn't shake the fear. The aliens were already here. They were powerful, ruthless, and merciless. Could Earth's small, struggling forces really make a difference? Would they be able to save Zadara before it was too late? The uncertainty gnawed at him. But in that moment, Arian knew one thing for sure. Help was on the way. And no matter what the cost, he would fight to the end to see it through. Arian's hands trembled as he sat at the comms console, trying to process the voice he had just heard. "This is Earth. We've received your distress signal. We're coming. Hold on." The words echoed in his mind, repeating over and over, like some kind of dream he couldn't wake from. Earth. He had heard of Earth, of course, but it was always talked about in stories, in the distant tales of old, often dismissed as a place full of struggling, primitive beings. How could they help? How could they possibly stand up to these invaders? For a brief moment, Arian let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the hope they had been searching for. His body, cold and stiff from days of sitting alone, suddenly surged with a feeling he hadn't had in days. Hope. It was a fragile, delicate thing, a seed that he wasn't sure would bloom or wither away. But it was hope, nonetheless. He quickly sprang to his feet and rushed outside, his heart pounding in his chest. The sound of destruction still echoed in the distance. The invaders, relentless and brutal, were continuing their siege on Zadara. The sky was filled with flashes of light as buildings crumbled, and cries of terror rang out in the streets below. Arian stood on the hill, staring at the horizon, unable to escape the feeling that time was running out. The enemy was getting closer. The fleet of invaders seemed like a dark cloud of doom, and no one had come to stop them. His mind raced back to the message he had received. Earth. The people of Earth were coming. A wave of disbelief washed over him again. How could a species so far from them, with little more than a planet full of struggling civilians, have the strength to fight back against the alien threat? The question lingered in his mind, but he forced himself to push it aside. He had to believe. If Earth was coming, then they might be his people's last chance. The hours dragged by in agonizing silence. The communication link remained open, the static filling the air like a constant reminder of the unknown. Arian paced back and forth, the weight of the situation pressing down on him with every step. Every time he thought about the aliens, their monstrous ships, and their cold, unfeeling eyes, it felt like his stomach turned. How could they be so ruthless? It was clear to Arian that these invaders had no care for life. They had come to conquer, to wipe out any trace of the Zedaran way of life. He walked back to the comms console, his fingers moving over the keys as if they had a mind of their own. He sent out another message, one more desperate cry for help, not for Zadara, but for any shred of hope. Please, Earth, please hurry. We cannot hold on much longer. The minutes stretched into hours, but Arian could feel something change. It was as if the air itself had grown tense with anticipation. He kept looking up at the sky, praying for any sign of the Earth ships. The horizon remained empty, void of any help, but still he waited. His fingers gripped the edge of the console, as if it were his only lifeline to the world outside. And then, just as he was about to give up hope once more, the stars shifted. It was subtle at first, a flicker in the sky, something moving against the dark backdrop of the night. Arian's breath caught in his throat. He ran outside again, looking up at the sky, and there it was, a small fleet of ships, far smaller than the alien warships, but still visible against the dark expanse. They were heading toward Zadara. It was real. Earth had arrived. His heart skipped a beat. As the ships drew closer, the outline of their craft became clearer. They were nothing like the massive, technologically advanced vessels the aliens used. Earth's ships were smaller, sleeker, and a little battered, as if they had been through their own struggles. There were no grand displays of power, no intimidating weapons or shields, just small, humble ships. Yet there was something powerful in their simplicity. In that moment, Arian realized that what Earth lacked in technology, they made up for in spirit. Arian rushed to the comms console again, his hands shaking. Earth ships, this is Iran. We are here, waiting for you. The invaders' air. But before he could finish his message, the console suddenly crackled to life. A voice came through, calm but firm. This is Captain Alia of the Earth Fleet. We've arrived. Stay strong. We'll handle the rest. Arian nearly collapsed in relief. The captain's voice was like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning in the deepest of oceans. Earth was here. The impossible was happening. The ships were descending toward the planet, and Arian felt a warmth spreading through his chest that had been absent for days. Maybe they could win this after all. As the Earth fleet approached, Arian could see their ships glow faintly against the dark sky, their hulls reflecting the dim light of the alien ships still orbiting above Zadara. The invaders, for the first time since their arrival, seemed uncertain. They had been expecting a fight, but not from a species as unknown and unprepared as humanity. They hesitated, their ships hanging motionless in the air, as if assessing the threat. Arian, still standing on the hill, watched in awe as the Earth fleet deployed. It wasn't just a group of ships, it was a force. Despite their smaller numbers, there was an unmistakable confidence in the way they moved. They didn't hesitate. They didn't falter. They were here to fight, to defend, to protect. Suddenly, a loud roar filled the sky as the invaders attacked. Their massive ships unleashed deadly beams of energy, but Earth's fleet quickly responded, launching counterattacks with astonishing precision. The alien ships were larger, stronger, but the humans fought with a fire that the invaders didn't expect. Each blast that hit the enemy ships felt like a victory for Arian and the people of Zadara. It was clear that Earth's forces, though small, were not afraid. Arian stood frozen, watching the battle unfold. He had never seen anything like it. The way humanity, a species once thought weak and insignificant, fought with such determination and courage. The invaders had come to destroy Zadara, but now they were faced with something they hadn't anticipated: the relentless spirit of humanity. As the Earth fleet fought, Arian realized that no matter what happened next, the people of Zadara would never forget this moment. The universe had been indifferent to their cries, but humanity had heard them, and humanity had come. Even if the war wasn't over yet, Arian knew one thing for sure: Zadara wasn't alone anymore. They had allies, and that made all the difference. The battle had just begun, but for the first time in days, Arian allowed himself to believe that they might actually win this fight. The battle raged on above Zadara as the Earth fleet clashed with the alien invaders, each exchange of fire lighting up the sky like a fiery storm. Arian watched from the hill, his heart racing as the humans fought with an intensity he had never seen before. The invaders, with their vast ships and ruthless weapons, had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they were now faced with something entirely unexpected, a force they could not easily defeat. The Earth fleet, though outnumbered, moved with a precision and coordination that spoke of deep training and unity. The humans did not retreat, even when the alien ships fired powerful energy beams, sending shockwaves through the air. Instead, they adapted. They weaved through the blasts, their ships nimble, their maneuvers unpredictable. It was as if they knew exactly what they were doing. Each move they made seemed like a calculated response to the enemy's attack, and with each passing moment, it became clearer. The invaders were not in control anymore. Arian's pulse quickened as he watched a group of Earth ships break through the alien defenses. They launched smaller fighters from the main vessels, the sleek, fast ships darting like wasps in and out of the larger enemy craft. These smaller fighters unleashed rapid-fire energy blasts, hitting their targets with remarkable accuracy. One by one, the massive alien ships began to falter. Some exploded into bright flashes of light, while others were forced to retreat, their weapons malfunctioning or their shields failing under the pressure. It was a strange feeling for Irian, watching the Earth ships perform their dance of destruction. It was not like anything he had ever imagined. He had always believed that only the most powerful civilizations, those with unimaginable technology, could stand up to invaders like these. But here were humans, with their relatively modest technology, pushing the invaders back, and in doing so, shattering the Zeterans' belief that they were powerless. As the invaders' ships faltered, a sudden silence descended on the battlefield. For the first time since the war began, the alien ships hesitated. Irian couldn't help but notice how quickly the tide had turned. The aliens, with their cruel, unyielding nature, had underestimated humanity. They were not prepared for the resolve, the tenacity, and the heart that burned inside Earth's soldiers. Among the chaos, a figure caught Irian's attention. A woman, Commander Alia, the captain of the Earth fleet, stood in the center of the battlefield, her ship at the forefront of the assault. Irian had heard her name over the comms, but seeing her in action was something else entirely. She was focused, determined, and unshaken by the ferocity of the enemy's attacks. Her voice came through the comms system, steady and strong. "Keep up the pressure, Earth fleet. We can do this." Her words spread like wildfire across the fleet. It was as if every human ship, every soldier, heard her call, and with renewed energy, they pushed forward. The alien ships began to retreat in disarray, their once coordinated attack now broken into chaotic, scattered movements. One by one, the Earth fighters dove into the fray, bringing the fight directly to the invaders' command ship. There was a collective cheer among the fleet as the command ship's shields finally buckled, a massive explosion lighting up the sky as it was destroyed. Arian stood frozen, a sense of awe taking over him. The impossible was happening. Earth, a civilization once thought too weak to make a difference, was turning the tide of battle. He watched, breathless, as the remaining alien ships turned and fled, their once mighty force now reduced to a scattered, retreating mess. The victory was far from complete, but it was a powerful first step. The Zeterans could hardly believe their eyes. In a moment, the fear that had plagued them for so long began to fade, replaced by something new: hope. For Irian, the realization was overwhelming. It wasn't just the battle they had won, it was something much bigger. Humanity, despite their apparent weakness, had proven something far more valuable than any advanced technology. They had proven that heart, courage, and the will to fight for others could change the course of history. But as the Earth fleet prepared to regroup, Arian knew that the war was far from over. The aliens would not give up so easily. The Earth ships might have gained the upper hand, but the invaders still had a vast number of ships in their fleet, and they would return, more determined than ever. The real test was yet to come. Still, as the Earth ships withdrew momentarily to tend to their wounded, Arian found himself filled with an emotion he hadn't felt in days: gratitude. The people of Earth had shown up when no one else would. While the larger, more powerful civilizations had turned their backs, Earth had listened. They had risked everything for a people they had never met, for a planet they had never known. Arian took a deep breath, letting the cool air of Zadara fill his lungs. The landscape, once filled with the sounds of destruction, had quieted. The battle was far from over, but there was no turning back now. The Zedarans had been saved once, and the invaders were retreating. The question now was whether humanity could finish the job. It was a terrifying thought. But as Arian looked up at the Earth ships once again, something stirred within him, a fierce, unwavering belief that maybe, just maybe, they could. Maybe the fight was winnable. Maybe they had a chance. The Earth fleet was not just saving Zadara. They were showing the universe that strength was not always about size or technology. It was about will, about standing up when everyone else had turned away. Humanity had given them a chance to survive. Now, the Zedarans had to prove they were worth saving. The war was far from over, but Arian felt something stirring within him, a fire he hadn't known he had. And in that moment, watching the Earth ships slowly turn toward the enemy for another strike, he realized something that filled him with an overwhelming sense of purpose. They weren't just fighting for Zadara anymore. They were fighting for something much bigger. They were fighting for hope. And with humanity by their side, they might just win. The silence after the battle hung thick in the air, a rare moment of calm after the chaos that had unfolded. The Earth fleet had dealt a powerful blow to the alien invaders, but Arian knew better than to think it was over. He stood atop the hill, his eyes scanning the skies. The Earth ships were regrouping, pulling back to assess the damage, and the invaders were retreating, but not for long. They would return, and they would come in greater force. As the Earth fleet's ships made their way to a safe distance to tend to their wounded and make repairs, Arian couldn't shake the feeling of urgency. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. He had seen enough of the invaders' cruelty to know that they would not leave until Zadara had been completely destroyed. They wouldn't be content with retreat. No, they would regroup, rearm, and come back with even more firepower. And yet, for the first time in days, Arian had hope. He had been consumed by despair, convinced that his world was lost, but the humans had arrived. They had given him something he never thought possible, a reason to fight, a reason to hold on. The invaders had underestimated humanity, and that mistake would cost them dearly. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice crackling through the comm system. It was Captain Alia, her voice steady as always. Zedaran forces, this is Captain Alia. We've taken heavy losses, but we're not backing down. We'll stay with you until this is finished. There was a moment of static before she continued. Your world is not alone anymore. We'll fight together, and we will win. Arian's heart swelled at her words. It wasn't just the fleet. It wasn't just their ships or their technology. It was their resolve. The humans were willing to fight for Zadara, not because it was their world, but because they understood the value of life, of standing up when all hope seemed lost. Arian had seen it in their actions. Earth didn't have to send help, but they did. They didn't have to fight, but they were. And that meant everything. The tension in the air was thick, the calm before the storm. Arian glanced down at the remains of the village he had once called home. The streets, now littered with debris and ashes, were silent. It was hard to remember a time when Zadara had been peaceful, when the air had been filled with laughter instead of the hum of weapons and the scream of airships overhead. The invaders had taken everything, but they hadn't taken Zadara's spirit. That remained. He turned and began to walk toward the communications tower. It wasn't much, but it was the last link between Zadara and the outside universe. The comms console flickered as he powered it up again, the static crackling for a few seconds before he was able to send a message. His fingers hovered over the keys for a moment before he typed out a simple, yet powerful message. To Earth. Thank you. We stand with you, no matter the cost. Together, we will fight. The response came almost instantly. We will stand with you as long as it takes. Stay strong. Arian closed his eyes for a moment, letting the words sink in. Earth wasn't just offering help, they were offering solidarity. They weren't here to conquer Zidara, to claim it as their own. They were here to protect it, to fight for it. That was something Arian had never known from the stars before. The universe had always felt so cold, so indifferent, but now he understood. Now he knew that there was still goodness, even in the vast expanse of space. As he turned back to look toward the Earth fleet, his thoughts were interrupted by a sudden burst of movement in the distance. The sky darkened as more ships appeared, alien ships, much larger than before, descending toward Zidara with frightening speed. Arian's stomach dropped. The invaders were coming back. And this time, it looked like they were bringing everything they had. The Earth ships quickly moved into position, their formations tight and organized. There were fewer Earth ships than the alien forces, but Arian knew they had something the invaders lacked: resolve. The battle was about to intensify, and Arian could only hope that humanity's courage would be enough to drive the invaders back once more. Earth Fleet, this is Captain Alia. Her voice crackled over the comms, steady as ever. The enemy is coming in stronger than before, but we are not backing down. They want this world, but they will not have it. Zidara is under our protection now. Get ready, everyone. It's time to show them what we're made of. Arian's heart raced as the Earth fleet moved into position. The ships formed tight defensive rings, their weapons powered up, ready to face the coming storm. For a moment, Arian felt the weight of the situation. Zidara's fate was tied to the bravery of these humans. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for freedom, for the future of Zidara. As the alien ships closed in, Arian watched with wide eyes. The invaders' ships were massive, their hulls dark and imposing, the flicker of their weapons lighting up the sky. They were ready for war, and they would not give up easily. But the Earth ships, though outnumbered and seemingly outgunned, were moving with confidence. They weren't afraid. The first volley of fire came from the alien ships, a barrage of energy blasts that rained down on the Earth fleet. The sky erupted in flashes of light, and Arian felt the ground beneath him tremble as explosions echoed from above. He braced himself, watching as the Earth ships retaliated with their own firepower. The blasts shot through the air with incredible precision, hitting their targets with deadly accuracy. The invaders were strong, but they were not invincible. Arian's eyes were locked on the battle above, every moment feeling like an eternity. The Earth fleet was outnumbered, but they fought like lions, their ships darting in and out of the enemy's range, firing with deadly precision. Arian watched in awe as a large alien ship erupted in a fiery explosion, sending debris scattering through the sky. The invaders were losing ground, but they weren't giving up without a fight. Just as Arian was beginning to believe that the tide might truly turn in their favor, a massive explosion shook the ground beneath his feet. His heart leaped into his throat as he saw a burst of light that lit up the entire sky. A large alien ship had broken through the Earth fleet's defenses, its weapons aimed directly at the heart of Zidara. The blast was coming. Arian felt time slow down as he watched it move toward the surface, the massive weapon preparing to fire. He couldn't breathe. This was it. It was all going to end. But then, in a flash of light, something else intervened. A smaller ship, an Earth fighter, darted into the path of the blast, intercepting it before it could reach the planet's surface. There was a brief, terrifying moment of silence, and then the fighter exploded into a brilliant flash, taking the blast with it. Arian felt his stomach drop. The Earth fighter had sacrificed itself to save Zidara. And in that moment, something in him shifted. The fear, the desperation, the hopelessness, it all melted away. He understood now. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about standing together, no matter the cost. It was about fighting for something bigger than themselves. As the Earth fleet regrouped for another strike, Ariane's resolve solidified. He wasn't alone anymore. And neither was Zedara. They had allies now. They had hope. The war wasn't over, but with humanity by their side, Zedara would fight to the last breath. The battle had escalated into chaos. The sky above Zedara was alive with the flicker of laser fire, the explosive blooms of energy from enemy ships lighting up the atmosphere. Ariane watched as the Earth fleet continued its valiant stand, refusing to back down even as the alien forces closed in, their overwhelming numbers threatening to crush the last flicker of resistance. Yet there was something in the way the humans fought. There was a quiet defiance in their movements, a confidence that sent ripples of hope through Ariane's heart. Even in the face of annihilation, they did not falter. Ariane stood on the hill once more, his eyes focused on the distant horizon where the battle was being fought. The ground beneath him trembled with every explosion, a stark reminder of the violence that was unfolding above his planet. He could hear the faint hum of the comms console in the distance, but his attention was fixed on the skies. The Earth fleet had drawn first blood, but the invaders were relentless. Their ships, massive and intimidating, pressed forward like a tidal wave. Despite the Earth fleet's fierce resistance, the invaders were regrouping, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm the small but determined human force. Ariane's mind raced, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. This was it. This was the moment that would decide the fate of Zedara. The invaders had underestimated Earth, but now they were fighting back with everything they had. But would it be enough? Could the humans truly hold their ground against an enemy so much stronger? His thoughts were interrupted as the comms console crackled to life. It was Captain Alia again. Her voice, steady and filled with determination, cut through the static. Zedaran forces, this is Captain Alia. We've been hit hard, but we're not done yet. Earth does not know the meaning of surrender. Stay strong. We're not leaving you behind. Ariane's heart swelled with pride at her words. Earth was not here to conquer Zedara. They weren't fighting for glory, for fame, or for some grand purpose. They were here because they believed in something greater than themselves. They were here because they refused to stand by while innocent lives were destroyed. They were here because they believed in fighting for what was right. He tightened his grip on the comms console, fingers trembling with anticipation as he sent a message back. Captain Alia, Zedara stands with you. We will fight together. We will not let them win. The response came almost immediately, a single firm sentence that filled him with a sense of purpose. We fight together until the end. As the Earth ships clashed once again with the alien forces, Ariane felt the weight of the moment settle over him. The invaders had come to Zedara with one goal in mind, to wipe them out, to erase them from the universe. But what they hadn't counted on was the resilience of Zedara's people and the unshakable resolve of humanity. The Earth fleet was fighting with everything they had, each ship moving with grace, dodging enemy fire, striking with deadly precision. They were small in number, but their spirit was undeniable. They didn't rely on sheer firepower alone. They relied on strategy, teamwork, and most importantly, their willingness to sacrifice everything for a cause greater than themselves. The alien ships were formidable, their weapons powerful, but they were not invincible. As the Earth fleet moved in, their counterattacks relentless, Ariane watched in awe as one by one, the invaders' ships were picked off. It wasn't easy. The cost was high, and the Earth fleet was taking casualties. But with every enemy ship that fell, Ariane felt his heart grow lighter. The impossible was becoming real. Then the unthinkable happened. A massive alien flagship, far larger than anything Earth had faced before, descended from the sky, casting a shadow over the battlefield. The very air seemed to warp around it as it fired a devastating energy blast, sending shockwaves through the Earth fleet's defenses. The Earth ships scattered, trying to avoid the oncoming blast, but it was too fast. The beam hit one of the smaller human vessels head-on, and the ship erupted in a brilliant burst of light. Arian's breath caught in his throat. The destruction was unimaginable. But then, amid the smoke and debris, a new wave of Earth fighters appeared from the depths of the fleet. They were smaller, faster ships, their movements fluid and precise. They launched with a fury that made Arian's blood run cold. These ships weren't just fighting. They were fighting for their fallen comrades, for their homes, for Zadara. They swarmed the alien flagship, relentlessly striking its weak points, dodging the aliens' fire, and attacking with precision. Each blast sent ripples through the massive vessel's shields, each direct hit weakening its once imposing structure. Arian watched in awe, his hands clenched tightly at his sides. He had never seen such determination, such unity in battle. Earth's fighters were not just attacking the enemy, they were showing them what it meant to never back down, to keep fighting even in the face of certain death. The battle continued to rage as both sides clashed with everything they had. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the tide began to turn. The alien flagship, once so powerful, was now teetering on the edge of destruction. Its shields faltered, and the hull began to crack, sending sparks and explosions into the atmosphere. It was clear now. Earth was winning. Then, a sudden message broke through the comms, startling Arian. It was Captain Alia. Her voice was filled with both urgency and conviction. Zedaran forces, the flagship is weakening. This is our chance. Focus everything we have on it. Let's end this once and for all. The Earth fleet rallied, their movements synchronized, and with one final push, the alien flagship was destroyed in a blinding explosion. The remaining alien ships faltered, retreating in disarray, their once coordinated attack now reduced to a chaotic mess. The battlefield, once filled with the deafening roar of weapons, now fell eerily silent as the invaders retreated. The victory was theirs. Arian stood there for a long moment, not quite believing what he had just witnessed. Earth had done it. Against all odds, they had driven back the invaders. But it wasn't just their technology, their tactics, or their ships that had won the day. It was their hearts. The heart to fight for others, to stand against tyranny, no matter the cost. As the Earth ships circled the skies, their victory complete, Arian allowed himself to believe that Zadara's survival wasn't just a dream. It was real. Earth had saved them. They had come when no one else would. And now, together, they had won. The war was over, for now, but this was only the beginning. Together, Zadara and Earth had proven that no matter how small or outmatched they might seem, courage, unity, and the will to protect what was right would always win the day. And as Arian watched the Earth fleet descend toward the planet, he knew that Zadara would never forget the day humanity had stood by their side. The cheers of victory had barely begun to die down when the harsh reality of what lay ahead hit Arian. The sky was still filled with the remnants of alien ships drifting in the void, their once imposing form now nothing but burning husks. The Earth fleet, battered but not broken, had delivered an unforgettable blow to the invaders. The immediate threat had been dealt with, but there was a nagging sense of uncertainty. The battle was won, but the war, Arian feared, was far from over. He watched the Earth ships slowly descend towards Zadara's surface, the once unreachable strangers now their allies. The alien forces had retreated, but in the distance, the last remnants of their fleet were still escaping into the blackness of space. Defeated but not completely gone, Arian couldn't shake the feeling that this would only be the first of many battles. Arian felt a mix of emotions: pride, fear, awe. Humanity had saved his world, but at what cost? So many lives had been lost, both on Earth's side and Zadara's. The Earth fleet had been battered, and though they had won, their ships bore the scars of a brutal conflict. Arian's heart ached for the families and friends who would never see their loved ones again, their sacrifice now a part of Zadara's history. But despite the pain, despite the sorrow, there was a glimmer of hope. Humanity had stood with them when no one else had. When the universe had turned its back on Zadara, Earth had answered the call. That thought alone filled Arian with determination. They couldn't allow the sacrifices of the fallen to be in vain. They couldn't let the invaders come back again and finish what they started. As the Earth ships touched down, Arian felt a mixture of awe and relief. The humans had landed. Their fleet had fought off the invaders, and now they were here to rebuild. The soldiers who had fought alongside Zadara's forces began to disembark, their uniforms stained with ash and dirt, their faces weary from the fight. But in their eyes, Arian saw something different, something he had never seen before in the eyes of his own people. It was the light of resilience, the flame of hope. Captain Elia stepped off her ship, her face streaked with soot and her body weary, but her stance was firm. She walked toward Arian, her expression one of quiet resolve. She didn't say a word at first, just gave him a nod, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had formed between them in the heat of battle. Arian found his voice. "I don't know how to thank you, how to thank all of you," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "You came to our aid when no one else would. When all hope seemed lost, you brought us a future." Captain Elia met his gaze with a soft smile. "You don't have to thank us. This wasn't just about saving your world. This was about showing the galaxy that there are still those who will stand up against tyranny, no matter how powerful the enemy is. You're not alone anymore, Arian. Humanity will always stand with you." Her words struck a chord deep within Arian. Humanity had done more than fight to defend Zadara. They had shown the universe what true strength looked like. It wasn't just about firepower or advanced technology. It was about heart. It was about the willingness to sacrifice everything for something greater than yourself. Arian felt a sense of responsibility weighing on him, but this time it was different. It wasn't the crushing weight of hopelessness he had once felt. Now he carried the weight of hope, the weight of the future. And that future, with humanity by their side, was worth fighting for. As the humans began to tend to their wounded, share their supplies, and set up a base of operations to help Zadara rebuild, Arian felt a spark of determination. They had fought and won together, but the journey wasn't over. The invaders would not stop coming. They would return, but this time, Zadara wouldn't be alone. The Earth fleet wasn't just here to rebuild. They were here to stay. Together, they would make sure Zadara was never again the helpless planet waiting for an answer to its cries for help. With humanity's strength and resolve, they would build a future together, one where no one had to fight alone, one where all worlds, no matter how small, could stand strong against any threat that dared to cross their path. The tension in the air began to shift. What had once been a battle for survival was now a fight for the future. The fight for Zadara's freedom, for humanity's survival, was now a shared one. And as the Earth fleet began to settle on the surface, Arian knew this was only the beginning. The war was far from over, but together, they would win it. Together, they would bring peace to the galaxy. And with humanity at their side, Zadara would never have to cry for help again. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in what felt like forever, Arian felt a deep sense of peace. No longer would they be a forgotten world on the edge of the galaxy. No longer would they be left to fight alone. The strength of Earth's people, their courage, their willingness to sacrifice, it had given them all the reason to keep going. And in that moment, as the Earth ships began to settle into the makeshift base, Arian made a silent vow to the fallen soldiers, to the lost lives, to the brave souls who had fought not just for Zadara, but for all of them. They would rebuild, they would fight, and together they would protect the future. Zadara had been saved, not by technology or overwhelming firepower, but by something much more powerful, the will to protect, to stand up, to never back down. And that was a lesson Arian would carry with him for the rest of his life. In the days to come, the rebuilding would begin. But for now, Arian allowed himself a moment of peace, standing alongside the Earth soldiers who had given everything for a world they had never known. And for the first time, Zedara was not just a world in danger, it was a world with allies. And that, Arian knew, was the greatest gift of all. The war was not over, but the battle for the future had just begun. And with humanity by their side, Zedara would be ready for whatever came next. The silence after the battle felt unnatural, almost eerie. The echoes of explosions and the hum of energy weapons had faded, leaving only the steady pulse of life. Deep breaths, the distant cries of the wounded, the rustle of damaged ships being repaired. Zedara had been saved, but the cost had been great. And though the skies were no longer filled with the terrifying silhouette of invader ships, the war was far from over. Arian stood at the heart of what had once been a thriving city, now nothing more than a ghostly wreck. What remained of his people wandered the streets, picking up the shattered pieces of their lives. The Earth fleet had fought valiantly to defend Zedara, but many of their ships were damaged, and their soldiers, though victorious, were weary. The battle had taken everything from both sides, lives lost, families shattered, and the fragile hope they had fought for hanging by a thread. Captain Elia had promised Zedara would not be left behind. She had kept her word, but Arian knew that what they had fought for was not just survival. They had fought for a future now shared by Zedara and Earth, two worlds bound together by more than just a mutual need to survive. They had fought together because both knew what it was like to face extinction, to be pushed to the brink, to have nowhere else to turn. But in the end, it wasn't just Earth's firepower or Zedara's resilience that had won the day. It was the bond forged in the heat of battle, the belief that they were not alone in the universe, that someone, somewhere, would stand with them. Arian looked toward the horizon. The Earth ships had landed, their engines still humming softly as the survivors disembarked. The soldiers, though bloodied and bruised, had a look of determination on their faces. They had not come to conquer, to claim Zedara as their own. They had come to protect, to fight alongside Arian's people as equals. They hadn't just defended a world. They had proven that no matter how hopeless the odds, humanity would stand against the darkness. Halia approached him, walking slowly as she surveyed the destruction. There was a weariness in her eyes, but also something unyielding. They had won, but the price had been steep. She stopped beside Arian, and without a word, offered him a small, grim smile. "We did it," she said, though her voice was tinged with the fatigue of a battle fought and won. Arian nodded, his gaze fixed on the Earth ships in the distance. "I don't know how to thank you. All of you. We were alone, Captain. We had no one. And then you came." "We didn't come to thank you or expect gratitude," she replied, her voice firm but kind. "We came because when we saw your world under attack, we knew it was our fight too. We don't leave people to face destruction on their own. That's what it means to be human, to stand with others, no matter the cost." Her words struck Arian deeply. He had always known of the cruelty in the universe, the ruthless, cold nature of the galaxy where power often spoke louder than justice. But the actions of these humans had shattered his perception of what was possible. Earth didn't see Zedara as just another world to conquer or exploit. They saw it as a world worth saving, a world worth fighting for. And in that moment, Arian realized just how much that meant. He turned to her, his voice thick with emotion. "The invaders won't stop, will they?" Alia's eyes darkened and her jaw tightened. "No, they won't. This isn't over. But neither are we." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've taken a hard blow, and Zedara's had its share of pain. But we're here now. We fight together, or we don't fight at all. And Earth doesn't give up easily." Arian looked at the Earth fleet, still standing strong despite their losses. For the first time, he didn't feel the weight of helplessness pressing on him. Humanity had shown him something that no one else ever had. Strength wasn't just about physical power or weaponry. It was about standing tall in the face of fear, fighting not just for yourself, but for others, no matter the cost. As the days passed, Zadara's citizens and the Earth soldiers worked side by side to rebuild. The humans shared their advanced technology to help heal the wounded, to repair cities, to restore life to a planet that had been on the brink of annihilation. Earth's technology wasn't perfect, but their hearts and their resolve were. And it was those qualities that would help Zadara rise again. The once quiet streets were now filled with the bustle of activity. Earth's soldiers and Zadara's civilians worked in unison, clearing rubble, tending to the wounded, and starting the long process of rebuilding. The Earth fleet remained in orbit, ensuring that Zadara's skies stayed clear of invaders, but it was the presence of their allies on the ground that truly made the difference. They weren't just here to help. Earth had become a part of Zadara's future. One evening, as Arian walked through the newly constructed medical tent, he found Captain Alia inspecting the damage to one of Zadara's smaller cities. She was kneeling beside a group of injured soldiers, directing the humans as they tended to the wounded. Her determination was unwavering, even after everything they had been through. "I've never seen a people fight like this before," Arian said, his voice filled with respect. "Zadara would have fallen without you. But you are different. You fight for something greater than yourselves." Alia looked up from the group, offering him a quiet smile. "We fight for each other. That's what makes us stronger. And that's something I think your people will understand soon enough." Arian nodded, feeling the weight of those words sink into his chest. There was no such thing as a perfect world, no such thing as invulnerability. But with allies like Earth, Zadara would always have a chance. They weren't alone anymore, and that made all the difference. Days turned into weeks, and the scars of war slowly began to heal. The Earth fleet remained vigilant, watching over Zadara's skies, keeping the invaders at bay. Though the threat had been repelled, there were whispers of larger forces gathering in the distant corners of the galaxy, planning their next move. But now, with humanity by their side, Zadara stood united, stronger than before. Arian and Alia continued to work closely together, strategizing, rebuilding, and ensuring that Zadara would never again be caught off guard. The humans were as committed as ever, not just as allies, but as friends. They shared stories, exchanged knowledge, and built a future where both worlds had a place. One day, as Arian stood in the newly constructed city center, looking out at the horizon where Earth ships still patrolled the sky, he felt a deep sense of pride. Zadara had faced its darkest hour, but it had not fallen. And it was no longer just a world at the mercy of others. It was a world that stood strong, not just for itself, but for the future of all. "We're not done yet," Arian said quietly to himself, "but we'll face whatever comes next, together." And with that, he knew. The battle for Zadara's future had only just begun. But now, with humanity by their side, they were ready. They were no longer alone.